Good morning and welcome to episode 4 now, I believe, of Talking Baldocks with me, Neil Baldock, and my brother.
Matt Baldock.
Yeah, you're
Yeah,
learning to introduce yourself now. I'm going to leave you hanging there to get your own name in there.
pretty
Um,
good at that.
and this week we are talking about we're still in our series of 7 pain points that we find agents experience and kind of the solutions that we've got for that. And one of those is people having a lack of profit and feeling like they're really busy, but they're not making enough money, and they describe themselves as a bit of a busy fool. And we want to talk about some strategies to avoid that and not become a busy fool. So, really, our kind of thinking behind that is having a proper fee structure in place and charging your worth. And there's a lot to talk around that. Do you want to start us off, Matt, or do you want me to give a few things?
Yeah, I'll just talk for a bit, so then I feel important, and then you can give your knowledge. I think, as you say, really, it's all well and good doing loads and loads of transactions. If you're not charging the right amount of money, then you're working to no real end, and that's the point. And again, this goes back to something we spoke about in another episode, where you have to be factoring in how many listings you take, but how many you're actually selling, and how many of them are actually completing. What you want to really have and is an average fee. Listen, I'll hold my hands up. You're the numbers guy out of the two of us, so I'm sure you'll go into it. But you want to be aiming for kind of a minimum or an average fee. We have a minimum fee that we'll work on here, and then we have a kind of a targeted average fee that we're going to. We talk a lot about percentages, and I think agents wear percentages sometimes a bit of a badge of honor, but ultimately it's the pound notes that count, right? Because you don't bank percentages, you bank pound notes. So
Absolutely.
not we're not necessarily here to preach, oh, you have to be charging 2%. It's you have to actually know what your costs of sale are, and you have to be charging the right amount of pound notes for the work that you are doing. Invariably, that does turn into a percent. You can work out what percentage returns you the pound notes. But yeah, I think it's important that people have a real grasp of what they need in pound notes to be their average fee.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it's for me, I think it's a little bit of a mindset change that's needed on fees, and everyone gets caught up, in the wrong. They want to become the market leader. They want this many listings. They're not thinking about the profit. They're not really thinking with the end in mind, and that's what people should be doing. We can talk about that, but let's just break down a few things what you've said because they're really important and really good points. So, minimum fees is a really important thing to have in the business because, if you take our area for example, we had a lot of two-bedroom flats in sort of a really popular area that we deal with around the 180 thousand pound mark, and we just got fed up, didn't we? After 6 months to 8 months of dealing with leasehold problems and everything else, earning 1,800 quid if it was a 1% fee. And we just
Yeah,
literally chose that we're not going to do that.
yeah, and listen, it's a double-edged sword a bit, right? Because in an ideal world, I mean, flats are on the whole a pain in the ass, right? So you want to really charge more to sell a leasehold property than you do to sell a freehold property. But again, by and large, leasehold properties tend to be cheaper. So you could kind of say, well, look, we're going to price ourselves out of that market. The flip side is, depending if you've got a lettings business, which obviously we do have, selling the flats can then feed your buy-to-let investors, which then in turn feeds your rental business. So it is that double sword, So you don't necessarily want to discount yourself out of that market completely, but as you rightly say, Neil, you don't want to do 8 months of work with dealing with kind of the management packs, the management companies, etc., and end up with looking at your bank statement and thinking, Christ, I've done all that work for that amount of money. So I think it's important to really set a minimum standard, not just, and again, depending on who's listening, if it's just you working, you want that. But if you've got to feed a team at the end of the day, if you've got to split that commission in, you want the team hungry, right? You don't want the team working and only earning a tenner at the end of the day, because again, they're going to lose design. They're not going to then sell the flats. And if you want to be selling the flats to feed your lettings business, they have to be incentivized, and people have to pay the proper fees.
Yeah, that's right. And to be honest, since we kind of switched it, I do think I do make you right on. I think you've got to take a commercial view on every listing, and if I think you should have each listing ticking a few different boxes for you, and if it's ticking the box that you might have to reduce your fee a bit, but you're definitely going to sell that to a buy-to-let investor, and you're definitely going to get the management on it, or you're likely to, etc. Then fair enough. But yeah, I think you just need to set a general standard of what you are or what your business is willing to earn and what you as an individual are willing to earn. And the other point you made sort of ties in with that about the percentage to pound notes. Yeah, we're all obsessed with percentages. And I was having this chat with, because this goes both ways, just sales and lettings. This isn't only a sales conversation. Letting agents are obsessed with percentages as well. We must charge 10% or we must charge, I'm only charging 6% or whatever the case may be. And sometimes if you actually look at the pound note value again, then you can make a decision as to whether that's worth it in a management fee for you. So I think it's having an all-round commercial view of each deal, what it's going to bring to you, not in just the fee, but in future business. Can you build a chain out of it, etc. But it's just having that sort of willingness to change your mindset on it. And I think that ties in with another point I wanted to make about, you decide what you're worth at the end of the day. My view is, why should the 30 competitors down the road decide what I get paid and what our team get paid and what you get paid? Why do we do that as an industry? People just you wouldn't have any other job where someone says to you, "Oh, well, you're on X amount an hour, but today I decided I fancy paying you Y amount an hour, which is less." And you go, "Yeah, no problem." That just doesn't happen in any other industry. So it's just you believing in yourself really and deciding what you're worth.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, I was on evaluation yesterday, so we work on an upfront. We take a commitment fee, and then we obviously we're kind of at the higher end of the mid market agents in terms of our percentage, if you like. Interestingly, since we introduced the commitment fee, we have less pushback on that than actual fees themselves. So if anybody isn't charging anything upfront, that's 100% of mine. And I know this thing, it's all a mindset, but that is, I just said we have to do it, and we do it, and we get less pushback on that than the actual fee. So that's just an aside point. But chap was saying to me, I mean, I think the house was about 450,000. I was at 1.4%, and the guy was like, "Oh, I only ever pay 1%." But the thing is, I'd had a really good conversation with him, so I knew he lived. This was a second property. He lived in a very big house, and he'd lived in a few big houses. And he said, "Oh, I'm used to paying 1%." And I said, "Yeah, that's on a £1.5 million house." And he went, "Well, actually, the last one was 2.5 million." So I said, "Fine, no problems. You can pay me 20 grand to sell this."
Yeah,
And he was like, "Well, obviously I don't want to do that." So it's just so what I then said to him was, so number one, it's knowing your client, but then I said to him, "Okay, well, look, I'm not just going to drop my fee here and now, because number one, I think if I just drop my fee straight away, I'll try and stripe you up in the first place. But actually, this is my team's wages. So what I'm going to go do is I'm going to go back to my team and I'm going to say to them, what are we willing to work on this property for?" And that's quite a strong message, because then the customer knows that the team's going to be buying in, and you're kind of laying a little bit of a landmine for the next agent, because you're kind of saying, "Listen, if Johnny Cheap comes in, are his team going to be incentivized to try and sell this because there's no money in it for them?" So, but also I think it then shows, because we talk a lot about our team culture and being one here. So then they're seeing that on social media, but then that translates into the living room as well. They know the kind of customer they're dealing with. But if you are going to get into negotiations, don't necessarily think, "Christ, I have to agree a deal now in the living room." Take your time, go back and say, "Look, I'm going to discuss with the team because I want to make sure they're on board and want to give you 100% to sell your property." And in the same happens with pricing. And I know we're not talking about value today, but my other thing was, he said, we discussed a couple of prices, and I always have this is my maximum price. He said, "Okay, so if I come back to you and I want to try this price," I said, "Well, I'll just wish you all the best." So it's your business, it's your time, and you can set your stall out, and you're not here to jump up and down to everyone's tune. It's got to be almost a peer-to-peer relationship, not a lord and kind of a lord and peasant relationship.
Yeah, definitely. I think sometimes it's in the way you explain it to clients as well, because I've had conversations with people going back to the sort of the two-bed flat, 180 grand. It's not worth it for 1,800 quid or 2 grand to us. And we set our minimum fee. And, you probably end up, if you worked it out as a percentage, we probably end up being 2% or something for those. But, I just say to clients, yeah, we'd love to sell that for you. We're quite happy to help. But we are expensive for that. And here's the reason why. Um, and most people, when you actually, and I find that when you're trying to deliver value in anything, if you've explained it correctly, there are always going to be some people that don't see the value. But if you understand how to convey that value to your clients, generally, if you explain things to people in a way that makes sense, 90% of people go, yeah, that makes sense. Even if they turn around and say, yeah, that makes sense, but matey boy down the road has still offered me 0.5%, and I just can't refuse that. Well, then you make the decision. Well, they're not the right client to work with anyway. But I find it very rare that people, if you explain things in the right way to them, sort of fail to understand it. If that makes
Yeah,
sense.
no, that does. And again, so and it goes back to choice of language. So as you know, I'm very keen on the language that we use here in the business. So when I'm talking to people, I won't use the word fees or costs. So, and even in my written presentation, it's always your investment in our service in getting you the best price or the best result, whichever is important to the client, or getting you moved, to number 12 Acacia Avenue, by Christmas. My investment in that, your investment in that service is X, Y, and Z. And that's the thing, because agents are investments at the end of the day. We're investments twofold in getting the best price, but also in saving the customer's time and agony, to be fair. But value is is this a time when I can talk about value? Because that's something that's banded around a lot, talk about explaining value, and I've kind of got some views on that. Is that this conversation for
Absolutely,
that?
absolutely. There's no boundaries here as well. Keep it within
Fine.
the realms of cleanliness, but there's no boundaries other than that.
Good. Well, here I go. So that's the start of the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air rap. Anyway, value is this thing that's always banded around, and it's lazy estate agents' trainings, because it's always that if you didn't get the highest fee, you didn't show your value, and that's a bog standard out of the box training session, and it has some relevance because yes, you do have to demonstrate your value. So when but there are also people that are never going to see your value. So a very easy one that is we never go up against Purple Bricks on valuations because their clients don't see value in state agency. We, with our marketing, show that we hold ourselves to a certain standard, and the Purple Bricks clients obviously think there's no point in phoning Charles David Casson because they're going to be more money than I want to pay. And I've got no interest in going and pitching against them or Yopa or Strike or whatever they're called nowadays, because they're not going to see my value. So number one is you want to set your marketing and the way you speak and everything, the way you present yourselves, so that you are dealing with people who are going to understand your value. They're going to share your values to a certain extent, and they're going to see it. So when I go out, I say I want 1.4, and I'm against agents that are going kind of 1.25, something like that. So don't get me wrong, people still do negotiate, try and negotiate, but not to the realms of point. I don't ever deal with a 0.5 agent, a 0.75 agent, something like that. So first thing is, yes, you have to show value, but secondly, you have to understand not everyone will see it, and the trick is to speak to as few of those people as possible. The next point is value cannot, well, you can't, everyone says, oh, show your value on the appraisal or the valuation. You're a little bit too late by then.
Yeah,
Your marketing, your pre-value, you have to have that strategy to get there. So something that's always used is, restaurants. So, you can go to Weatherspoons and pay £10 for a steak, or you can go to a very nice high end and pay £300 for a steak. And so you get these people saying, so buyers do understand value. Some buyers buy an Armani jumper, and some buyers only buy Primark. Well, it's not really that cut and dry, because the thing is, again, if you go and have a very bad meal, I guarantee everybody who has a bad meal still wants to eat dinner the next day. Okay. So you only know about if you've had a bad service once you've had the service. If it's dinner or clothing, you're always going to have another meal. You're always going to need to wear another item of clothing. The housing market's different. People are transacting probably now every 10 years. There'll be a stat. It used to be 7. I think it's gone beyond that. So once they've had their you can say, well, they're going to get a bad service, then they'll know I was better. well, that's great, but they're not actually, you're not going to get that second bite all the time. Because let's be honest, a bad agent can sell a house. It's all, we take about 20% of our listings off agents that can't sell houses, but poor agents do still sell houses sometimes, right? Even a broken clock's right twice a day.
Yeah,
So the reason I actually believe you go to the £200 restaurant or you go and buy the designer clothing is because you've seen marketing from them that suggests they are worth that amount of money. So you've bought into either a lifestyle or you've been looking at the restaurant's Instagram, you've heard recommendations, and you go, God, that is going to be more than I'm used to paying for something, but I really want that experience of going there.
yeah.
An
I think
agent's, God, sorry.
Well, I think what and this could end up being a whole nother episode as well. But I think what you're talking about there is becoming an attraction agent,
Yeah,
and that does go along with both value and being able to charge what you want to is almost building up, attracting clients to come to you and almost building up a waiting list in some cases if you
exactly.
depending on the size and structure of your business.
And when I was a corporate agent, I got told the instruction should be one on the phone call. So when that person phones to book that valuation, it should be, one then really. You should be going to that living room. You should build such a rapport. They should really enjoy the chat. So I actually think nowadays, the world we live in with social media, the instruction should almost be one before they even pick up the phone. So your content, basically, if your content is right, they want to phone you. The phone call's handled properly, and then your pre-valuation. So what are you doing? We use Akaboom here, but are you hand delivering something? Are you just sending a generic default email from your CRM? I would encourage everyone to stop doing that and do it's cheap and easy to do anything better than that. So by the time you get to the front door, A, they should know who you are because they've seen you online, and B, they should kind of be almost be welcoming you in because having people in your home to value home, people do still get nervous about estate agents. So if you do that, and they should almost expecting you to be more expensive, in brackets, than the other agents because you've held yourself to a higher standard the whole way through. So I don't think if anyone's thinking I want to increase my fees, stop thinking about how you're going to do that on the day and work out actually how you're going to do it in the build up to getting the appointment.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, I think there's a lot. Well, it's your all-round product and service experience, isn't it, that builds the value. But we have this a lot in lettings. I don't, and we don't. We do go to some where we're up against other agents, but the majority of lettings instructions we get, and as people know, we've got a sizable lettings business. They're what I'd call a direct instruction. We're not necessarily going to
Yeah,
value it. We are going to take it on, and that is because of all of I guess the build up we've done, the marketing we've done, the seminars we put on. We've spent a lot of time building, and it's the same with some of our sales instructions, actually, aren't they? People come directly to you or to me and to the team because they want to use us. But that's because we've done 13 years now of building this business and building that value there. But it's just you've got to have that all round experience, but you've also, and again, going on to a slightly different issue there, but then you've also got to deliver on that service. If you build that
yeah.
proposition, you've got to deliver that. You then got to deliver the service to make sure the client gets the experience they're expecting. They're happy to pay the value you conveyed to them, and then they're happy to recommend you to the next person.
Yeah, and the lettings resales one is such an interesting thing for me, as because I grew up a sales agent and really only became in lettings once I owned this company. Because traditionally sales agents think that they're mustard and the lettings agents always look down upon, right? But whenever you speak, if you took a broad cross section of agents, lettings agents have no problems charging their fees and putting their fees up even. And sales agents, I would suggest actually as a company, we've found it so much easier to put our lettings fees up than we have our sales fees, right? And it's been a big challenge because as letting agents, I think you're almost like a solicitor with the amount of legislation that you have to deal with. You're showing, what we have to do. So I know we're not regulated as such, but you're saying, well, look, I have to comply with all these regulations. I have to give you almost legal advice to keep you safe. That costs, and because people are used to paying solicitors fees, they get that. So with estate agent, what
I
estate
think
agents do is put a value on time. So estate agents need to come away from this. We put you on Rightmove, we put you on Zoopla, and actually saying, if you've been an agent, so I've been an agent for like 20 odd years, I can show and I can explain stories about things that I've done, and I can talk about nuances in the market, different parts of the conveyancing process, and really demonstrate yourself as an expert. And I think that's the point. Lettings agents seem easier to show themselves as experts and charge the fees, and a sales agent, sorry, struggle to do that.
Yeah, but I think that, and I hope I don't upset people by saying that, but I think that is a mindset thing because when you look at the type of, well, there's two things. One is the type of client we're dealing with as letting agents. Often it's a more commercial relationship you have anyway. You're dealing with a lot of people who understand commercial, they're business people, a lot of landlords, not all landlords, of course, but you're dealing with a lot of business owners who own property and things like that. So it's a lot easier to have a commercial type conversation. The bit I'm worried about upsetting people, but I'm going to say it anyway, is I think there's a lot of estate agents who have only been estate agents. You don't find a lot of letting agents have come from other industries. They've seen what happens in other industries. They've owned other businesses. They then go into lettings. Estate agents tend to have started as a negotiator, progressed up, become a valuer, then gone on to own their own business and things like that. So they actually haven't seen much outside. And in this estate agency industry, everybody's been drummed into these percentages for so long, and you must hit this. There's just certain market shares, this level of percentage, blah 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 blah, and so it's quite hard for them to get out of that mindset. But for me, it's never been that hard because we get a lot of agents say, "Well, when can I change my fees?" When now, right now, because only the customers you've dealt with previously know what you used to charge. From literally this second forward, you can decide, no, I'm not willing to work for that anymore. The next customer I go and see, and going forward, I'm now worth this amount. So you can change it immediately. And yes, I agree, you've got to do all the things and then build up, build the proposition. But you can make that decision right this second that I feel like I'm worth more. And so I'm going to change that.
But yeah, and a real simple and easy way to do that is, and I did this. I did a speak. I did a talk to a group of agents in London probably last year for about raising fees, and very simply. So Neil, if I said to you, I'm going to write you, I'm going to give you £1 million. I'm going to give you £1 million right now.
I'd
Would
say
you be happy?
thank you.
Exactly. If I said, but you're not going to wake up tomorrow, would you still want that £1 million?
No, of course not.
Right. So very simply, we've established time is valuable, right? We talk about money. The most valuable thing in the world is time because it is literally the only thing you can't. You have a bad month financially, you can make more money. But you lose time, you can't get that back. And that's what agents need to realize. Your time is the most valuable thing you have. And sometimes the public, they know, they'll go and buy something off a shelf. If they can touch it, they see it. But people struggle to put a value on time. But once you understand you're not getting those 6 months you dealt with that person back. You're not getting that time back. You're giving your time away to people and you're emotionally invested. Because let's be honest, selling properties is an emotional time. You're going to deal with
Yeah,
rants, with tears. Yes, there's a lot of happiness, but you're going to give some of yourself to that. And a lot of agents do get emotionally involved in it. And that's your time you're not going to get back. So once you realize that, you have to realize it's all a sacrifice. So I'm willing to give my time, but in return, I want that financial reward. And that's the trade-off you have to make.
definitely. And I don't think, I think sometimes people are afraid of explaining this stuff to clients. Like I personally have no problem if I go into evaluation and give my percentage or my fee, and a customer says to me, "Oh well, you know, can you do it for 0.75%?" I'm quite happy to say to them, "Look, if I came into your work and said, like, I really want you to do this work for me, but do you mind just taking a bit less money today? How would you feel about that?" Because if you put it in ways that people can start understanding it, then all of it doesn't become, it's not a fee conversation anymore. You're now having a value conversation with them. And that's how you can get them to understand how you now feel. And you look, I'm bringing you all this value, I've got all this expertise, I'm going to do all of this work for you, but just basically asked me to take a pay cut. I'm not too keen on that, and can you understand why? And clients then it's in a way that they're like, oh yeah, okay, look, I see what you're saying, and it just gives you that way to get some empathy from the client back towards you as the agent, actually.
Yeah, no, most definitely. Another interesting thing you can do is you can work out. So if you think from listing a property to completing, and it's going to be around 6 months, let's say, you can divide that fee by that amount of weeks and work out how much you're earning every week. That'll shock you.
Yeah.
So and trust me, that'll bump you up. But it is, I know, I kind of almost want to go back to the beginning because I should have said this at the start.
Mm,
What you said about agents have got this ego thing about it's that right move pie chart, right? It's about the amount of listings. The name of the game in any business really is to do less work for more money,
correct.
right? So actually, don't worry, you cannot pay your bills with a right move pie chart. So, and this is where if you look at the prime market, prime agents do a lot less transactions. But and there is a stat, and Simon Ledbetter had it in the voice of the agent, and I'm going to forget it entirely, but they do prime and super prime do a significantly lower amount of transactions, but they account for a huge amount of actual fees.
Mm,
Okay. And what a lot of agents I've found, mid-market agents have gone, oh well, we need to try and sell £1 million houses because we can still charge only 1% or 0.75% and we can earn 10 grand, 7.5 grand. No, because that's not your expertise. Put your fee up, you can take less mid-market houses on, but at higher fees. For argument's sake, if you charge 1.5% to sell a house, you can earn the same amount of money as selling two houses at 0.75%. So you can literally do half the amount of work for the same amount of money. And that's the aim of it. That's the aim of it. You want to be doing less work for more money. And the way to do that is to put your fees up. Also, because it isn't just about the agent, the user, we talk about the user experience, if you put your fees up, all of a sudden you've got more money to pay for better technology. You've got more money to pay for better training. You've got more money to hire people. So it's a self-perpetuating, thing. Once you start charging more money, you can then actually afford to train people to provide a better service. Once you provide a better service, you can charge more money. And it goes round and round and round. You've just got to start.
you do. You've got to kind of take that, take stock of it really, and think if you're sitting there as an agent today and you're thinking, God, I'm on the way to burnout here. I'm so busy. If you think I am so busy, but I'm not earning either anything in profit or what I want to be, then that's the time to have an exercise on this and sit down and go, right, what do I need to do? And either change it so you're doing less transactions at more fees, um, and that probably is the solution, or look at how you can add value to what you're existing, like you're doing already, to increase those fees. And it can be done. It's just a decision. That's the thing. I think it's like built up in people's mind that this is a big issue. This is a big thing. Whereas actually, you just got to make some decisions and then put the things in place to then deliver them.
Yeah.
Interestingly, one of the things I wanted to mention is obviously more on the letting side, but we've done 5 acquisitions now over the last few years. And if you look at every business we've acquired and also some that we've assessed a lot more and sort of either turned them down or haven't been able to do them at the time. But every acquisition we've generally ever looked at has had low fees. Now, I'm not saying people don't genuinely want to retire because obviously they do, but if a business is really profitable, then it's a lot less likely to be sold, or it's going to be sold for a very high multiple to like a corporate because they're the only ones that can acquire it. So I think sometimes there's telltale signs, and for me, that is a clear indicator. Um, if you want a business that's going to be sustainable, and I have that conversation quite often with landlord clients, and I will say to them, look, you may have been offered 5% from so and so down the road. We don't work for that, and here's the reasons why. And we've been going for this long, and as you can see, we're growing, and we're always growing, and we intend to be around for another 13 years and more. And if you want an agent that's sustainable, we have to make a profit, and so we have to charge those fees. Um, because let's face it, if you're at a 10% management fee and somebody says, "Well, can you do it for 8%?" Well, that's 20% gone. And if you're running at a 20% profit margin, well, you've just given your profit away by making that reduction. So that's another thing to think about. And again, that's not necessarily like, we don't have to stick to the percentages because it's about the pound notes. But that's another sort of way for an agent to kind of look at their value. So they're normally charging 1% and then they drop to 0.8. They've just given 20% away.
Yeah.
It's a big chunk, but we often just go, oh yeah, I'll do it for that because so and so is going to do it for that. Why are we matching prices that just because someone else is? It just doesn't make sense.
No, I agree. And I think the other thing, just aside from the fees, is value adds, right? And you can do that on sales and links. So, it's, yeah, you've got this, but can you add on any services? So in lettings, rent and legal protection, can you sell that? Can you make a markup from that? Can you offer some form of concierge? So, you can have different services. If you can't get them on full management, if you don't just want to let only, can you do rent collect? What can you do just to eke that bit more? And sales, and this will be unpopular because again, there's this thing out there at the minute in the sales market where everyone's demonizing referral fees. It's not. We live in this world where it has to be this or that, but you can't. We should live in a world of and. So it's not referral fee or good service from a conveyancer. There are plenty that will give you a referral fee and a good service. Same with mortgage brokers. So, you can actually add on quite a bit of money, to a deal. If you've got someone using a conveyancer, buying and selling, and you've got them doing a mortgage, there, and it doesn't have to be a dirty word because ultimately they're going to use a conveyancer, they're going to use a mortgage broker. And so, why again, you put the time into investigating, building relationships with the right ones, and if you can also earn out of that, then again, that's something that can then just bump up your fee to a certain extent. So then, you can work out, well, yeah, I'm going to sell a flat that's a low fee, but they're going to use my conveyancer, the buyer's using the mortgage broker, and all of a sudden it can add up. So there's always value adds to look at as well.
100%. I mean, we're big fans of multiple streams of income, and I think that's important for any agent. If they've got an existing business and they're struggling with it, there's probably more that they can get out of their existing business. In fact, I'd be 100% shocked if we didn't look at a business and find something that could be added to get more out of their actual existing business. So yeah, people should look at that. And I think it goes back to you've got to treat it as a business. I think a lot of us come into it because we were employed estate agents, and then we go, people that are going self-employed, well, they consider themselves self-employed, so they've still got a job. It's just they earn more money now. But the reality is it is a business, and it must be treated like that. So yeah, I mean, it's an interesting topic. It's like I feel like you could talk for days on stuff like that, and maybe we will do another episode on that kind of client journey and how to build the value in order to do this. But I think just any agent who's sitting out there thinking, "God, that rings a bell," I am absolutely run off my feet, but I just don't feel like I'm getting what I want out of this business. Hopefully we're giving a few tips away that they can sort of start thinking about.
Yeah, I'll just summarize what I think maybe some key tips that people can take and then ask us about it because they're bigger conversations. So number one, I would urge people to actually sit down and try and work out their cost of sale. So
Yeah,
actually look at how many properties you've been selling or been letting, what you brought in, and then obviously what your and all costs. So your portal costs, your elect if you've got a building, your rent, your electric, because people forget you've got to pay for the computers, obviously your wages, and work out actually divide that by the amount of deals you're doing, and work out what's actually costing you, because that will give you an idea of really what your minimum fee needs to be. Another thing is, set a minimum fee. Also, look at fees in pound notes. That was the other tip we spoke about. Sometimes when you're negotiating and people are negotiating, switch it from a percentage to a fee, so a fixed fee. Say, listen, this is my fixed fee. I'm willing to work for that. And also, just if you are going to stick to percentages, stop negotiating in quarter of percentages. For some reason, it always has to be like 1, 1.25, 1.5. It doesn't have to be that. And so I prefer to flip it onto a pound notes. I like to know what we're earning in pound notes. Um, so um, cards on the table. The chap that was, I'm not going to give him 1% for yesterday, but I'm going to offer him a bit of a deal because he's got a chain-free property. And again, for me, a chain-free property is really important. But I'm just going to flip it to a pound notes that we're happy to work for. So yeah, work out your cost of sale, set yourself a minimum fee, look at your fees in pound notes, and stop negotiating in quarter percents. That's what I would say.
100%. And just believe in yourself. That's the bit I think estate agents need to start doing, is believing in themselves. If they know they can deliver great value, great service, then believe in yourself, and don't let other people dictate what you're worth. So
And sorry, I cocked up. I didn't say the F words because I know I'm not going to say that. The other one was sorry. My biggest tip of all: look at your pre-valuation setup, because that is the really important part to get you in to not to get you into the front room, but to actually charge the fee when you're in the front room.
yeah, great stuff. Well, I think we'll wrap it up there for today. If anybody, we haven't said our please like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. And then you'll get notified each time we release one of these videos and podcasts. And yeah, that's a wrap on episode 4 of Talking Baldocks.
Thanks very much.
See you next time.